right, cooler weather is just about here, and that means it's time to bring out those crock pots.
Yep. Feed Your Family Tonight founder and family dinner coach Mariefiebach joining us back in the studio this morning with roasted beef bone broth. This is something that you could do in the crock pot and just in any old pot. Marie, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, Shane, it's such a pleasure to be here today. And yes, you know, soup season's starting to come. As the weather gets a little cooler, people start thinking about soup, and the best soups start with a really good broth. I've done my chicken broth here on air before, but I haven't done beef broth. And this recipe is really, really simple. It's the kind of thing that you make on a lazy Sunday afternoon. It starts with beef bones, and there's two kinds of bones that you can find in the grocery store. You can find meaty bones and you can find marrow bones. The difference between the two is the marrow bones don't have any meat on them and the meaty bones do. I like meaty bones, and today this is a shank, and it has a lot of meat on it. It has the bone inside of it, and then I also have a short rib. So the short ribs have bones and meat on them. You can pick whatever kind you can find. Basically what you want is about 2 to 2.5 pounds for this recipe. Okay. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this in a Dutch oven, or if you don't have a Dutch oven, put it on a sheet pan, and you're gonna sprinkle it with about 2 teaspoons of coarse sea salt, and you're gonna roast this in your oven at 400 degrees for about an hour. And what's going to happen is the bones are going to start getting brown. The meat is going to get all golden brown. It might even render a little bit of fat. And once they are roasted, then you're going to pull it out of the oven. And again, if you don't have a Dutch oven, then you want to put it into a slow cooker or to a pot. But if you've got a Dutch oven, what you're going to do is you're going to add these next few ingredients. And one of them is an onion. And this onion, you don't even really have to peel. You might peel the outer layers, but I usually leave the stem end on. And you don't have to cut it very, very finely. I'm just cutting it into quarters, and I'm putting that in after these have been roasted. And then I have a half a teaspoon of whole peppercorns. You don't want the ground pepper because that'll make it kind of cloudy. 4 cloves of garlic, again, just whole. 2 bay leaves, and these bay leaves are going to give it so much flavor. And then about a cup of celery. And if you happen to have the center parts of the celery that have the leaves, even better. And then after that, you're going to add about 4 quarts of water. You're going to put the lid on it, and it's going to bake in your oven at 350 degrees. So you reduce the heat and let it bake for about another 2 to 3 hours. And what's going to happen is the bones are going to get into the water with the meat and all the spices, and you're going to end up with this delicious bone broth. But then you have to strain it. Okay, so when you strain it, I usually take my tongs and I pull out the meat first. And you can actually eat the meat off of these bones. You can chop it up and put it into your soups. And then you're going to want to strain it. And if you're saving this, I strain it into jars. If you're not saving it, you can put it just straight into your soup.
How long is it good for if we're saving it?
You can keep it in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 days. It'll keep in the freezer for a couple of months. You don't want to keep it in the refrigerator too long because it's kind of not very stable and you don't want to get sick. So a couple days in the refrigerator, but a couple of months in the freezer. And I just take a ladle and I put it through my fine mesh strainer with this handy dandy funnel. This funnel is the $5 gadget that is my favorite thing because it fits right into a mason jar, and then my strainer sits on top of it. Now, if you can see here, this broth is a little bit cloudy. If you want really, really clear broth, you can put a coffee filter in here as you strain it, and you're gonna get very clear broth. It doesn't really bother me that my broth is a little cloudy, and there's a little bit of fat that solidifies on the top. If you want reduced fat broth, pull the fat off. If you like the fat, if you've got really high quality bones and you like the fat, leave the fat in. The big thing is when you are doing it with a jar, you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of space at the top. You don't want to fill it all the way because water expands when it freezes, and you'll break your jars.
Okay. All right, good tips.
And so this makes soup. Then you can take this and you can make my Max's favorite soup, which is a hamburger soup. You can make this beef soup with veggies. You can turn it into all sorts of different things. You can turn it into even like a beef pot pie if you thickened it up and then put some puff pastry on top. But this beef broth is so handy and good for soup season.
Absolutely, just the broth itself. What a nourishing, something that's always kind of intimidated me, but I've always wanted to try to make it on my own.
Allison, don't be intimidated. This is so easy. And you're right, it is very nourishing. Best broths will actually kind of thicken a little bit. There's gelatin and collagen in the bones, and your broth is going to have a viscosity. It's going to have a really good mouthfeel, and that's one of the big differences between homemade bone broth and just a broth that you're buying in the grocery store.
And it can just be a starting point for a lot of different soups. You got the broth and then put a bunch of different stuff in there, and that's where Marie comes in handy. She can always coach you on different variations of things, or just changing up your plan, whatever it may be, with the planner that you have here, with the meal planner and all kinds of resources at feedyourfamilytonight.com. So thank you so much, Marie. We sure appreciate you always here on Good Morning Cakeland.
Thanks so much.